Hello and welcome back to BioFarm 2022. As you can probably hear, there's still some chatter going on after the last presentation. Now, next up, we're going to have Paul Holmbeck. Paul has considerable experience, having previously worked with Organic Denmark for about 25 years. He is also becoming a bit of a European poster boy in terms of developing markets around Europe for organic. Whether he realizes it or not, we don't know. His presentation is called Best Practice, Creating Organic Market Breakthroughs. Paul, I'm going to let you take it away now.
Thank you very much. It's the first time I've been called a poster boy. It's the kind of thing you want to hear when you're 61. Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity to present some lessons from Denmark about the kinds of policies and market partnerships and the mobilization in the sector that has been driving market breakthroughs in Denmark. And I call it building the transformative infrastructure because it really takes a wide variety of actors working together in a coordinated way to drive change. Yeah, and my background is in Organic Denmark, which is the national association in Denmark for organic farmers, food companies, food professionals, and consumers. Yeah, what I do now is assist in other countries in market development, but also building strong policy frameworks that can drive change, not just in the market, but also in the fields. I recently did a strategy for the Netherlands, for example. It also included a whole organizational development for the Netherlands. And I'm proud to say that next week, the Netherlands will be coming with a new organic action plan that includes quite a lot of the recommendations for the policy framework. So look forward to that. Wow, what a program you've had this week. I mean, it's really heartwarming to see the organic and regenerative actors working so closely together to make change, share knowledge, and assist each other. It's not like that everywhere. It's the way we're trying to work in Denmark. And as we speak, the International Organic Association is at COP27 discussing with serious regenerative actors about being better together. So I will bring this experience on to others. And I just want to share a couple of words from the international scene before I start. In case you haven't noticed, for those of us who've been around for a while, organics has been kind of hit over the head with the idea that we can't feed the world with organic farming, and that organic farming is not good for climate because yields are lower, etc. Well, the last 3 or 4 years, something has really happened. There's been breakthroughs coming from really the highest levels of research, the IPCC, that's the International Climate Panel, FAO, UNEP, World Food Security Committee, IUCN, that's the nature-based solutions gurus of the world, really saying that organics and agroecology more broadly is part of the solution for food security, for climate, for biodiversity, and for better livelihoods for farmers. And most recently, the launch of the Global Agroecology Coalition, which is 34 countries. Ireland's welcome to join, and 70 international partners that are going to work to upscale organics and agroecology around the world. Organic sector itself really has a lot of momentum also. We're up to 120 billion euros in sales. And a lot of governments, some of which I'm consulting with, some of which I'm not, are developing new organic policies to develop the organic sector and support organic farmers in their work, make sure there are more of them. And there's help available for countries that are trying to develop policy and markets and creating organic growth. I assisted with many others developing guidelines for public support for organic agriculture, finding all the best practices around the world to assist. So Denmark, um, we are world leading in organic sales, consider ourselves a front runner. Our organic label is known by 99% of the population. 85% have a high or very high trust in the label. We have the highest market share, organic, of all the total food market of 13%. And yeah, this has led to some very high market shares for a lot of basic foods that people use the most of. So products like eggs, carrots, milk, says oatmeal, sorry about that, oatmeal, apples, and some other vegetables. We have 30 to 70% of the market. So we're not a niche anymore. We're more of the norm. Some conventional products are being phased out in Denmark. Conventional bananas are being phased out in all supermarket chains. In some chains have dropped conventional skim milk, for example, because they're selling 80% organic. Organic baby food has 95% of the market. So products that are eaten a lot of in families, especially families, yeah, with children, have very high market shares. And then we have a number of areas where we have lower market shares, although on a world scale, higher market shares. So basically things we should be eating and drinking less of, wine, beer, pork, cold cuts, etc. And organic consumers in Denmark are actually also kind of leading the way towards a more plant-based diet. And reducing their meat, although meat sales have continued to increase, but that's as more and more people, organic consumers, start buying meat. A number of other products are usually first in line, also because price differentials are larger there. That's also the thing. The higher market shares are typically on products where the price differential is not as great, 10, 15, 20%. Although eggs has a higher price differential, and we still have almost 50% of the market. Organic in restaurants and government canteens, government state-owned canteens, has been increased. We have thousands of these now, with our organic labels for 30, 60, or 90% organic. I'll get back to why that development has gone so quickly. I didn't manage to get the latest year here. The organic cuisine labels has continued to increase, but we did, like all other countries, have a fall in sales in 2021 for restaurants because they're all closed. But that was more than made up by a shift to online sales and all the box schemes, which had booming times. So we now sell 11% of all organic food is sold online, and it seems to be staying there. So that's another interesting development that producers should be aware of. We also have momentum in agriculture, and the organic area has doubled. We're up to over 12%. We have a new goal of doubling again, and then in that way, reaching the new European goal for 25% organic in 2030. 25% of all eggs produced, 30+% of, depending on the types of vegetables, are organic. This is on the production side. Organic farmers are earning more, not in every quarter, and not for every product in every quarter, but in general are earning more. It's the general knowledge and statistics show. There's a big interest from young farmers. We've put a great effort into building organics into the educational programs for young farmers, and getting them out on organic farms so they can see, we're able to debunk some myths out there. They can see that the fields actually look pretty good, and they actually do have the most modern machinery, And these farmers are really talented. And so, they start and their arms are crossed and they're kind of skeptical and they don't think, they think that's like the past way of doing farming. They want to be a part of the future. And they come away from there being really inspired. And I've often, and others in our Organic Denmark have often spoken to the final classes when they're finished with the highest levels of education within farming. And we always ask, how many of you will be organic farmers? And we always ask, how many of you are sure that you will never be an organic farmer? And, 10, 15 years ago, there were a lot, they were very sure they would never be an organic farmer. And it was just a few that were, thinking they would be. But the last time that I asked, the response was no one was sure they wouldn't be an organic farmer. And there were actually quite a few who were quite sure they would be. So that's really amazing. And part of that is what's behind that is that organics is kind of leading innovation. So it's the place to be if you're a talented farmer. There's more prestige in it now. They see that it's tough management. You have to be a really good farmer to be an organic farmer. And this is a quote from the chairman for all farmers in Denmark and all food companies as well, who said that the organic sector creates new solutions and inspires all of agriculture. And this is also one of the good reasons for politicians to back up developing the organic sector, because we develop the whole farm sector. None of this momentum came on its own. I've been with the effort for decades, and it wasn't always like this kind of political support from agriculture or support from the consumers. And if we're looking at market growth, which I've been asked to focus on today, it's three things. One is policy, the other is market initiatives and partnerships, and the third is the organic NGO itself having capacity to drive market development. And this comes from research that has compared a lot of different countries. And they point to the organic NGO as a kind of a change agent, creating motivation, motivating everyone to do something, to act for organics, building partnerships with different actors in business and policy and consumers. And then, building slowly this transformational infrastructure. And policymakers have a really key enabling function. This is another thing that I find is different in many other countries than Denmark, is that policymakers have actually taken on this enabling function. They've invested and collaborated with the organic NGO, and then supporting its capacity to work with retail, work with food service and public procurement, work with the organic farmers and companies on developing their work, and then giving policymakers much better data. And the first lesson in organic market development is unite. We've organized, like 90% of all the production in the sector, and that makes us a very powerful partner and a very competent partner for retail. Lesson number two is to build capacity. I mean, I remember the day I hired my first person who had worked in retail for a number of years and knew the language, knew the motivation factors, knew a lot of people. This kind of capacity is invaluable. We can't come from the outside. We have to come from the inside, also in terms of mindset. And then consistent political support for differentiated market initiatives, not just in retail, but implemented by an organic market team. So retail partnerships, but also the consumer campaigns for the national logo, which has also been done by the organic NGO. Food service mobilization, supporting local short chain sales from farmers. We have 4 times as many organic farmers that are doing this than conventional. Box schemes and online sales, export promotions. And this kind of differentiated strategy has created a very positive environment for many startups where they can constantly mature and work towards new markets and new value positions. So how does this work in retail? I mean, one of the more unique features in Denmark is this dynamic here that I want to try to describe. And that is that where Organic Denmark, which represents the producers and processors, the first links in the supply chain, we go to the top leadership in retail, not just the buyers, and talk with them about strategy and what organics can do for their strategy and their position in the market. Then we help them to have success. And part of this is broadening their product assortments, and we work on how they're presenting their products in the store. Then how they're communicating. So we help them communicate much better with their consumers about what the value of organics really is and why they should pay a higher price for those products and buy them not just once in a while, but every time. Just a few examples. We've also tried to really work with what I call the democratization of organics. Like, there's an idea that organics is an elite thing, but we've always worked from this standpoint that, as it says in Danish here, everybody should be able to afford organics. So we were the first to bring organics into the discount sector, and this was highly controversial. I thought some farmers and producers were going to just take my head off. But we convinced most, at least, that this is where a lot of the people are. And if we want to sell organic products, we also need to be there in discount. So we went to an organic leading discounter, Netto, in 2004 with a very ambitious strategy. We presented them with 12 campaign periods and the whole package, and a suggested theme, and they bought into it completely. And now they're actually sell more organic products than any other supermarket chain in Denmark, 18% of the total sales. And this really catapulted and motivated other retailers to move in because they saw that Netto was having a lot of success. Another example, more recently, we did a strategy in 2015 with Co-op Denmark, which has 38% of the total food market in Denmark, with the shared vision with Organic Denmark that we will make organics for everyone. So very similar theme, but with a concrete goal of doubling organic sales. So we did all the steps, massive advertising, we used their private label actively, their loyalty program, and expanded that. And we did it. We increased the organic market share from 7.5% to 16%. We also did some interesting things on strategic price cuts on products, which we convinced Co-op to eat completely in order to sell more volume and not just pass on these price cuts to the producers. A lot of times, it requires some convincing with some retail actors to get them to go into organics and do more than just have, a few shelves somewhere in the back of the store with organics, or just having a very narrow product assortment. We always try to show and can show with figures that organic consumers are the best to get in their store. They spend more on food on an annual basis, and they actually spend more each time that they're in the store. Best people to have in the store. And then we often try to show how their consumers who are in their stores judge their organic assortment. We ask them. And if we can show that their consumers have a falling satisfaction in the organic products they have, well, that's pretty motivating too. We also help them to understand which organic consumers they have. I'm not going to explain all this, but you can see that the very big differences in whether they have more heavy users, people using more than 25% or buying more than 25% of their products organic, or if it's more light users. So that affects, what you're communicating, how you're communicating, and what kinds of products you need to have in the store to bring them up the ladder. We also show their organic potential in their chain. So this shows, the propensity of consumers in given stores to buy organic and how much of that potential they're actually realizing within the given chains. Also very useful. A real key issue is to help stores expand their product assortments and close the gaps that they often have. And we've actually proven, together with co-op and researchers, that if a supermarket chain is lacking some whole categories of organic products, they don't just lose the sales on those products, they actually lose sales on products further up the line, because there's sort of a natural progression for most consumers. They start with, it's different from country to country, but they start often with basic foods, milk, vegetables, fruits, eggs, and move their way up this ladder. And co-op even says it's not a stairway, it's an escalator, because they never experience people going down. They're only going up. But if there are gaps in it, they fall through, and they can lose people and not move them, bring them in and move them up, as we say. One example is we went to actually one of co-op's competitors and showed product for product what the potential was for greater sales, because we used GfK data showing that people who were physically in their store were going somewhere else to buy organic products. We identified lost sales potential of 120 million Danish kroner, convinced them to increase they actually really went all in on this and expanded with 700 new products. And gave a guarantee of an organic choice for all products, and more than double the increase in sales from what we estimated. Then from the company side, we try to help our companies just succeed, be more successful, more update on information for the market, consumer trends, train them to work professionally with retail and food service. A lot of small companies, they've got a lot to learn. And then we do product development inspiration for them at several levels. Sometimes we also had a mobile product development team. A woman here is a product developer from Organic Denmark. She's together with a farmer, a retailer, and a mill director. And they developed a whole range of new products based on old grain varieties. They also had meat production and other things for that supermarket. It's a huge success. It allowed this whole island to go 100% organic. We've done a lot of work with finding more value positions in organic, because it's best if organic isn't just one option, but several options in a given category. So, for carrots, besides wanting to get more of them out, we finally found some solutions to get them out of all that packaging because of the control regulations. But in any case, trying to make them more interesting. So, filling out the need for these different price positions, higher price, more seasonal and new varieties with different uses, and explaining this to people. Getting for convenience products, 2 to 8 times higher price per kilo for the carrots being produced. Milk is another case. One case here, this is Tease Dairy, which is bringing value in at all levels. And we see this in a lot of markets, different milk based on, this is A2 qualities. Pure grass milk, cows have only been on grass, no additional feed, or milk ad libitum, which is where the calf has gotten all the milk it wants, and the rest goes to the consumer. And these are, differentiated on price. So they're trying to build value at all levels. So what they've done is they have, private label milk with some additional things. They've dropped all soya, for example, which got quite a lot of attention. That was trying to help protect the rainforest. Then better, added animal welfare, nature, other product qualities, and then very unique qualities for level of best. And one other thing, well, I'll come back to that. Arla has had a similar strategy. They've also added the 10 new criteria above the EU level, to improve soil health, promote biodiversity, reduce climate emissions, improve animal welfare. And it's really interesting the way they've taken on regenerative practices that there's been more focus on. They see those as, a part of a natural part of organics. They're doing, trying to improve use of regenerative practices in their conventional production, but also in organic. But they're not like running out like Nestle and others and saying, wow, now we're regenerative. They're just trying to do it to improve organic production, because it's part of the same values of organic are the precise values and principles of regenerative. One other thing from Tisa Dairy is this is a company that went in with a very close partnership with retail leaders, and this has been part of developing the market, is having partnerships like this. They've decided to only sell in co-op, which is a big actor, but it still sets some restrictions on them. And so that has allowed such close collaboration on these themes of organic, the no soya feed theme, the biodiversity, making more room for cows, pure organic products. So they coordinate on product launches, the media, social media, on-pack information, advertising, the whole package. So like with the soya, they came with the stories on the milk cartons, films about what it means for the rainforest, telling about the difference it makes, products being on sale to draw attention to the rainforest and soya issue, getting the dairy on national TV to talk about it. So this kind of a partnership is super effective. Then we've also had collaboration on organic export from Denmark. The Organic Denmark has been able to have a dedicated laser focus on organics. It's not like, yeah, we also have that. This is doing really targeted organic export promotion. Bring market information from organic market, key markets back to producers, creating the collective expo stands at BioFarm and other places where our larger companies create a really good platform for startups. And then initiatives targeting specific retailers, just like we've done in Denmark. We go to retailers in other countries and say, let us help you sell more organics. And so we get into a collaboration, and then they also end up buying also a lot of Danish products. And then, export readiness, work with smaller producers who are new to it. On the policy issues, it's all about the why of organics. So we talk with all political parties. We now have support from 10 of 11 political parties in Denmark. And believe me, it was not that way back in the early 90s. And then our approach is that organics is a part of the solution. We can contribute to a whole range of different sustainability goals, clean drinking water, biodiversity, climate. And we don't force politicians to choose between organic and conventional production, because we would lose. I mean, we're still a smaller part of agriculture. So we just need them to help us build up the organic sector. Some lessons from organic policies. We've had ministry has had very close dialogue with the organic sector on policy needs. We had very early on, we created an organic agricultural council with broad representation of environmental groups, consumer and agricultural groups to develop policy. Then we've also embedded organic policy as a tool in broad policies for climate, jobs, and nature as part of the solution. But then that's released new resources to develop organics and make us even a better part of the solution through research. There's been investments in the organic NGO for really being a tool for policy implementation in markets and the fields. The ministry has developed its role as a strong enabler, very strong organic unit. We've used organic action plans very actively. And then we've always tried to have a balanced push and pull approach. Already from the early 1990s, we were doing balanced, focus on production and consumption so that we don't have imbalances and so we get a more positive dynamic. I just wanted to say a couple words about the role of government in this, because this is not an obvious thing everywhere, where the government becomes a kind of a catalyst, also a policy innovator in upscaling organics through other actors. So they have their own job in creating the subsidy programs and redirecting funds towards the green agenda, developing policy frameworks, legislation, et cetera. But then when we're talking farmers, they've used the organic NGOs. This would be a little different because of the structure as it is in Ireland, but for training and then promoting organic agriculture, promoting best practice, using organic NGOs also for market development and public procurement work, and then developing an organic research platform. We have an independent organic research program which is integrated in all of the universities in Denmark, and centrally coordinated, so that we hit the biggest challenges for organic farming, but then we try to draw the best from all the universities, and then a very strong dissemination infrastructure, which I think you also have in Ireland. That embedding organics as a tool in other policies is something that I do not see in very many countries. So organics, every time we've done like a drinking water protection plan, rural development, plan for the checkoff funds, in the levy funds in agriculture, green growth programs, green public procurement, and climate strategies, organic has been built in through dialogue with Organic Denmark, as one of the pillars of each of these efforts. And that's important for ensuring, resources to develop organics, but it's also a really good part of the story, so that, that when the new rural development program comes out, well, organics is part of the solution, and climate, et cetera. And just, the new Danish climate strategy for agriculture includes this doubling of the organic area as a climate tool. And then also last year, we made Europe's largest single national investment in plant-based foods, where 50% was targeted to organic. Because also, partly to promote organic, but also because the consumers who are buying plant-based foods because of health or animal welfare concerns or the green agenda are, that organic plant-based is a good position in the market. Then we also launched in 2021 the new Innovation Center for Organic Farming, with climate, technology, and regenerative practices as central focus. This was Organic Denmark together with the national, farm organization, Danish Food and Agriculture Council. And then we have the Plant-Based Innovation Center, which is on, developing new plant-based products, more focused on closer to the consumer, those issues on product development. That was launched by Organic Denmark and the Vegetarian Society. And then organics is also solidly in the center of the plant-based shift in public procurement, which I'll come back to. We've actively used organic action plans, as I mentioned. They've had different focus. We did the first one in the world in 1995, and we've done a lot since, and they shift focus based on whatever the needs are. If it's more market needs, more research needs, exports, each time. So a lot of the lessons from Denmark are actually being used now in the EU Organic Action Plan as the toolbox for steps that can be taken to reach the Farm to Fork goals. So just for example, like our plan from 2015 won the Future Policy Award for most effective policy shifting to sustainability in agriculture. So these national organic action plans, they're being used in more and more countries. It's worth thinking about. That point about balanced push and pull policy, basically it just means that we have policies targeting every link in the organic supply chain, because we can't just have a dynamic in one part of the supply chain. So like out at the farm level, policy has supported subsidies for conversion, but also certification is paid for and free now for farmers. There's training, demonstration, farms and projects, R&D and innovation, and then conversion advice, where any farmer can get one day of advice for free about how their farm would look as an organic farm. Food companies, better market information, the organic schools that I described, and then working on all the different sales channels and consumer awareness. So policy is supporting all these things all the way out to the consumers. And all the things that just turned red on the screen are implemented by the organic NGO or other NGOs as catalysts. It's really only certification and subsidy and control and inspection that the government is implementing itself. One key tool has been the Fund for Organic Agriculture. It was a proposal from Organic Denmark, which was established in 2001, paid for by pesticide fees. And it's really put the organic sector on the offensive. And it's been a flexible tool that could shift to whatever the needs are at a given time. On public procurement has been a real motor for organic development. And this is a really good example of where policy on the one hand and then mobilization in the sector have worked in tandem. There were three political steps. One was doing a national goal for 60% organic in all public kitchens. Another was financing the education in the kitchens for the transition. And the third was development of our national organic cuisine label for 30, 60, and 90%. And when we proposed this label, it was mostly because we wanted to be sure that restaurants and canteens that had less than 100% organic could actually, promote that. But it's turned out to be this incredible documentation tool for the cities that are going into this. They can always see how far they've gotten. They can set new goals. And it's really a point of pride for the people working in the kitchens. Then in the sector, we did a guarantee of supply. So we brought farmers, food companies, and wholesalers together to ensure, as we had done in retail, that all the right products are there in the right volumes and they're promoted actively. Now, wholesalers in Denmark were not very positive about organics to start with. They were mostly focused on price, guarantee of delivery, and a little bit about the aesthetic quality of the food they were selling, but not about sustainability or organics. So we got leadership in those wholesalers to send their people out on organic farms to hear about what this is all about. And then the organic sector and other key NGOs organized the education and motivation kitchens in all the cities. Those organic schools for food service to create, motivation. We really need to get them out on the farm. They were digging down into the soil, seeing what organics does for the soil, what it does for nature, animal welfare. They were pulling up vegetables. They were, feeding hens, and they became such great salespeople. They had to get a diploma. We had to test them. They had to stand up and make a 3-minute speech for organics and what it does. They had to answer difficult questions like, why is this meat so expensive? This kind of thing. And then the people in the kitchens, which had been a kind of low prestige job area in Denmark, really became heroes. Like this is a 10-meter high banner saying, they've made Copenhagen an organic capital. Copenhagen has 90% organic now in all public kitchens. And so the people in the kitchens have, done this incredible sustainability shift, not just to organic, but to less meat, more greens and root veggies, food in season, and reducing waste. Gotta check my time. And creating this healthy, organic, more climate-friendly meals, and within the same budget, because they use the savings on less meat and less, reducing waste and buying in season to more than cover, but definitely cover up to 65% organic, all of the price premium on organic food. So everybody wins. And then we celebrate, people who've made these amazing processes, made that happen. This is in the central square, the city hall. And we've summarized all these. I did a paper for the European Commission summarizing all the lessons about this if you want to read more. Then on communicating the why of organic, we try to use clear, simple messaging. We try to leverage the capacity and the contact that retail has with consumers. We've had a lot of focus on the media, and we've used social proof intensely. Did you know that 75% of all Danes buy organic every week? That kind of thing. So this is a campaign, in Himmel til Forskel, which means literally a heavenly difference, but it also means the sky is the difference, and it also means a big difference. And it's all about animals, being out under open sky. This is about, 5 that make a difference. Buy these 5 products and reduce your intake of pesticides by more than 50%. Now, a lot of conventional farmers think this is not as what we call positive messaging, and they're somewhat right. I mean, we're talking about pesticides, and we're saying pesticides are not a good thing indirectly, and that creates a stir. So it's always a question, and this is about saving, our drinking water with organics. We had Pesticider as a product that was part of a campaign. And then we work on both ego and eco motivations. So this one's about, protecting our drinking water, how much drinking water we can protect, how many animals can we have out under open sky. This is why we buy organic. This is the difference. Social proof is about creating organic momentum, the big mo. And it's really, every time we've been able to get, more information out about, sales are increasing, then people are seeing, oh, this is the way things are going. We've always used that to create even more momentum. And so in stores, we've had, signs about, 55% of all our milk sold in stores is organic. That kind of reminds people, am I part of the 45% or what? Or 90% of our consumers bought organic products last week. In the media, when there's focus on families with children, prefer organic, etc. And using our allies too, animal welfare organizations saying animal lovers buy organic. And then in store, we've also used, this is some in the nudging genre, high visibility logos, so it's very easy to navigate, finding organics, well-placed organic islands, and then messaging in the right spot, right, for the right categories. So, pesticides, we're talking about around the vegetables and fruits, we're talking about animal welfare with the meat. We've also even taped floors showing how much room an organic pig has compared to other types of pigs. This increased sales by 20%. And in discount stores, interestingly enough, increased sales by 40%. So it actually works, and we work really closely with retail. And then information is really not enough. I mean, organics really has to be experienced, so get people out on the farms. 5% of the whole population is out on an organic farm each year. Last policy thing I want to mention is, remember local policy. This is a magazine we did for all local politicians and sent it to all of them just before an election about how organics could help them reach their goals, their sustainability goals for education, clean drinking water, biodiversity, climate, and, showed exactly how to do it. So we worked with some cities, we showed examples. We were working with cities to reduce CO2 emissions through climate schools for farmers. And then we did partnerships with 35 cities out of 98, or counties, I guess they're called, targeting organic conversion in the specific areas where they need to protect the drinking water supplies or protect national parks. And then 40% of cities now have, not for every school, but they do have, organic school gardens, which is then integrated into education. So we use that also as an example. So lastly, possible next steps, going forward, develop an organic action plan as a foundation for policy and for monitoring and follow-up. Include goals and budgets and initiatives for both market and innovation and farm conversion, education. Build the capacity in the organic NGOs as catalysts for action in fields and market, and then build organics into broader policies. And lastly, find game changers. We have pesticide fees that help to ensure that some of the environmental costs in conventional farming are more reflected in prices. I think differentiated VAT is another solution, and of course, moving farm subsidies more in a green direction. Those are my words for today. It's all about growing organics together, and thanks a lot for listening.
Paul, thank you very much for that. So we are going to be taking questions from online. We're going to be taking questions from the floor. We're on social media as well, if anyone wants to use hashtag BioFarm22. Sean and John, that was a lot of food for thought there, wasn't it? Sean, what stood out to you?
Well, I just think it's the amount of progress by an organised plan and what you can actually do is just absolutely phenomenal. A fantastic presentation, Paul. A couple of things I wanted to ask you about was the organic NGO that it seems have done an awful lot of the pre-work. Is that correct? And are they fully focused? We have the situation here where in a market development situation, Board BIA are the marketing board for Ireland, both organic and conventional. So roughly at a 98% conventional, 2% organic market, we probably would have concerns about their ability to market organic with one hand held behind their back. Did Denmark take a different approach and dedicate organic only to one organisation, for example?
We've had some collaboration with conventional farm organization and of course the ministries and other organizations, but the marketing of organics has been done by the organic NGO, Organic Denmark. We have tried to do that in a respectful dialogue-based way. So we've heard conventional farm organizations, we've tried not to be on the attack. We've never really attacked conventional farming in the media, etc. But it's really important in communicating with consumers that you're able to really tell the story about organics. And a lot of conventional farmers and farm organizations, they really have a hard time with that. They're worried about offending, their majority of producers. So I think it's really important that the organic sector takes the lead and then has a good dialogue with the conventional organizations, or general organizations as we call them.
John, you were making a lot of notes. I saw you scribbling there.
Yeah, why not, Paul? That was absolutely fantastic. I remember reading an article that you wrote in, I think it was June 2020, about the transition in public eateries in Denmark and that. And on the first slide, you just mentioned it, building the transformative infrastructure. And I know when you won the award for Best Policy Award, I think the Food and Agriculture Organisation were part of the judging panel with relation to that. But what it highlighted was the sheer diversity of stakeholders that you brought in. I remember reading that it was trade unions, for example, were in the grouping. Could you expand a little bit more on that? Because that was just a phenomenal effort, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, some of this has been very systematic, and some of it has been more, ad hoc and opportunistic, you could call it. I mean, we've had, from the 90s, we actually had this Organic Agricultural Council where we had the, primary nature organization, the consumers, or main consumers organization, the conventional farm organizations were there being a part of developing organic policy. And this, made some things at some times go slower, but really it was kind of building a consensus about how is it we're going to develop the organic sector, and reducing tensions about, if we build the organic sector, that's taking away from the conventional. Actually, it's not, and because it's an opportunity for conventional farmers, and we've always seen all conventional farmers as potential organic farmers, right? This is an opportunity for them. But then, so that's the systematic part. Then, on a case-by-case basis, we've done campaigns together with the Consumers Council. with the main nature preservation organization, definitely with the main animal welfare organization. And then, the trade unions that you mentioned, they were our closest partner in developing our public procurement strategy and actually doing the education out in the kitchens, because as with all of these things, they had a real interest in driving that transition. Just like, the nature organization had an interest in reducing the pesticide pressure on biodiversity. And so we are allies, and we try to work in solidarity with them. And so the trade unions, they're just like farmers, they'd had an intensive industrialization of their work over a period of years, which, like farmers, had kind of put them out of the game. Mm-hmm. They weren't in the center of their production anymore. They were opening up freezer bags and throwing them in. They were just kind of preparing food rather than making food. So there's a lot of, we brought them together with farmers also. It's really similar. A lot of the words they put on their work is the same, is that, wow, by, doing this transition to organic, or doing this transition to organic plant-based, we're really making food again. We're using our craft again. Just like the farmers are saying, it's my knowledge about soil, it's my knowledge about animals, plants that really matters even more here, just like the people in the kitchen. So the trade unions, we did a lot of educational work together, and their prestige as a group has increased as a result of this, sustainability transition. It's really amazing. They have these celebratory, where people get their awards and their organic labels and all this stuff. There's like, people are crying. It's like they're really proud of what they're doing because they're a part of making change.
I think, it's amazing the collaborative approach that you have. There is a question from online from Connell Murphy. Paul, are there any specific mechanisms to encourage producers to get into processing and develop SMEs around organic production and processing?
Okay, yeah. At some short periods of time, we actually had some investment support that actually helped some farmers go into processing, kind of micro scale production. I think probably some of the best support for startups from the farm base is the general work that's done to develop the market and create space for them. Organic Denmark has been able to bring, by helping expand product assortments, then we're able to introduce a lot of smaller producers to retail that otherwise never would have gotten in the door. And then, bringing them into like the main areas within these supermarket chains and bringing all their buyers down where we have all of our producers, many of them very small. So that's the helping on the market side. And then we've also had some networks of farmers. We also have a whole committee of farmers that are selling more directly to consumers, where they are exchanging lessons. Because a lot of times it's not about some expert telling them what to do. It's also just about building networks of, people who have some experience, people have less experience, and then just sharing those.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting as well in the context of Ireland, because for organic farmers there'll be a 60% TAMS grant that will, I think that will be for organic processing equipment as well. Sean, did you want to come in with a point there?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Paul there. One of the areas we discussed during the week here, particularly with, we'll say, the opportunities in organic dairy production was, from an infrastructural perspective, we have very small processors, and then we have a huge gap right up to the very, very large multinational type models that can export all over the world very easily. Have you seen in Denmark, probably Arla, probably similar in that context, have you seen them taking an active interest? Do they see that opportunity from an organic offering alongside their other conventional dairy offerings?
The largest producers?
Yes.
Definitely. And some of this in the more recently, has happened more organically. In the early years, Arla's predecessors, it's been formed by a number of dairies together, but really got forced into it initially because smaller dairies, farmers were breaking out of Arla, which is a co-op, starting their own co-ops and starting to produce organic because Arla wasn't moving quickly enough on it. Arla decided that would never happen again. So they started to organize their own organic production, offer a premium, and now, they try to have, a little extra organic, so they're never in a situation where they're actually lacking organic, because they got kind of caught off guard when we had rapid market growth. And back in 2005, 2006, 2007, they lacked milk. So yeah, I mean, sometimes, it's competition that motivates, but over time, Arla, for example, organic is a really central part of their whole sustainability strategy now, and their brand. And so they invest heavily in it, and I've seen the kind of the evolution of their willingness to communicate the benefits of organics from, in the early years where they weren't saying anything. They wouldn't talk about pesticides or cows on grass or and GMOs or any of that. Now, they really do promote it actively, and it's and they're part of growing. Like when they joined Organic Denmark, they also brought their professionalism into the organic sector. So they benefited from all the knowledge we had. We benefited also from some of the competencies they had. So I would really encourage also larger producers to be involved.
Well, we hope Kerry Gold or someone is listening, Dairy Gold perhaps, or Tier Lawn out there. We'll take a question from the floor if someone has it. The gentleman in the red shirt.
Just a comment on Denmark. I was in Denmark last April and I visited an organic farm. But two observations on the country. First of all, it's a very wealthy country, and secondly, the scale of farming in organics is quite substantially bigger than we have here in Ireland.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point.
What I'm wondering is, my question is, you're surrounded by very affluent countries, Sweden and Germany, and I presume you export a lot because you're adjoining those countries. We have we don't have that advantage, if you like. And I'm wondering how much of an advantage is that to the development of the organic sector in Denmark?
Did you catch that, Paul? So how much is it an advantage to have all those wealthy countries around you when you're exporting goods?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, we've had a lot of focus also for ecological reasons. We've had a lot of focus on our closer markets. But, we do have, I think our third largest export market is China. There are other really interesting markets out there. I just came from BioFarm, Saudi Arabia. One of the things that they're saying that they don't have and actually will not have the basis for producing themselves is organic dairy. I was in Korea last month at an expo with 750,000 visitors for organics. So there's a big interest. That is also a country that will not, where organics is growing, but will never produce, they only produce 40% of the food that they eat today. So, there are markets around the world, and Ireland is a global, a producer for the global market. So, I think the opportunities are there. It has certainly been a part of building organics that we've had a nation where consumers, are, on a global scale, more well-to-do. But, we have very high levels of sales to all income groups in Denmark, including, people of relatively low income. This is part of that has been the scale, as you also mentioned. As we've increased scale, we've really tried to keep the price differentials as low as possible, and then talk about that organics really is more for your money.
I'm just wondering, as well, Paul, in the context of Ireland, there's a lot of concern here, for example, in that there's a huge push on to get more organic farmers, but it is expected that nearly all of those organic farmers will be beef and sheep farmers. very few numbers of organic dairy, for example. And the concern is that there won't be a market for that organic beef and sheep. In the context of Denmark, was it a more equal standing in terms of organic farmers? Was there an equal number of dairy and beef farmers, for example, or was there a higher level of one over the other?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some kind of uneven developments in certain periods of time. But it surprises me that dairy wouldn't be a leader. Organics is a natural for dairy. And actually, it's been dairy that's been really a locomotive, for a motor for developing organics. It's been the strongest sector economically in organics in Denmark. So I'm surprised that dairy wouldn't be, a much larger part of that. It's also a product that, families with children use quite a bit of. This is a primary group. So that, that would surprise me. But yeah, we have had some periods where we've lacked, for example, even feed, for the dairy farmers. And then we've, adjusted some things with subsidies or, done active recruiting. We actually do forecasting and then go out and recruit actively producers that in the areas where we're lacking organic products.
Well, I think we have a price issue at the minute. Conventional dairy prices are very similar to organic dairy prices in for some processors, not all of them. We're going to take one more question from the floor, and we might leave it at that then. Make it a good one.
Is there much consumer knowledge or even interest in nutrient density? Not in organics so much as nutrient density of the organics.
Nutrient density? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so Ned, who is a dairy farmer but a conventional farmer, has asked you, is there interest in the nutrient density of organic food?
Well, that's part of a larger question on health. And I'll just say, we have never marketed organic products as healthier in Denmark. We have talked about, that we're free of pesticide residues, that our use of antibiotics is much lower, just 5% of that in, conventional pig production, et cetera. So there's some issues related to health, less added food additives. In terms of nutrient density, the only period, and this was researchers that brought this out more than us, the only period there has been a focus on is that vegetables, with conventional vegetables, with high nitrogen use, they're actually taking on a lot of water. So what you're getting with that big cauliflower is more water and less density of food that we need and nutrients. So per kilo, actually the organics would have a higher density. But yeah, not so much focus on differences there in dairy. There's been some attention on some of the more healthier omegas because of, pasture raised cows, eating a lot of clover have had more of the beneficial omegas. But we haven't really pushed that agenda so much in marketing.
Paul Holmbeck, thank you very much for your time. That was absolutely fascinating. We are going to take a short commercial break now, and we're going to be back with Talamh Bio after this.